Okay, let's get started. Glad all of you are here. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. We are on our third session here. We're going to learn from Tractate Taanit, and the pages we're learning are 20b, and that is, I know that the pages are not perfectly labeled here, but you'll pass through it, you'll find it. It's got 118 at the bottom in the English numbering. And this text has 3 parts. And we're going to read the second part, the third part, and if we have time, we'll read the first part. So on the page, you'll find a little symbol, the second to last paragraph, which says the Mishnah Tah. Does everybody see that? Okay, that's where we're going to start. So before we do that, Masechet Taanit is roughly along this idea of prayers for rain. And that people would fast in the context of praying for rain. And it doesn't only talk about that. It talks about lots of things, but that is like sort of the broad context of why fasting is the subject matter. In the section that we're learning today, and sort of sections around this, it's talking about how communities manage tragedy on some level, and dealing with the anticipation of tragedy, difficult physical situations around us. If you look in the very first line, it says, it's quoting the Mishnah, and likewise, if a city is afflicted by pestilence or collapsing buildings. We'll talk about that in a second. Pestilence is dever. It's like the same kind of thing as, like a pandemic. When I first taught this, it was solidly pandemic. It was like, okay, we're going to skip it. Let's keep going. We have enough of that, but we certainly don't live in that context now. So this text is going to start on an interesting context about sort of a world or a set of scenarios where something is breaking, something is broken, something is in a threat of being broken, something along those lines. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So we're not going to go back and read the Mishnah, which would be good Talmud study. We should do such things. We're not going to do that. But I do want to point you to this line, which we haven't gotten to yet. Look in the Hebrew. So again, we're on the penultimate paragraph from the bottom. And I want you to look at the last 2 words. It says Tanu Rabbanan. Does everybody see that? Okay, so the word Tanu here is a verb, and it's Aramaic. It's part of the Talmud's interpretive infrastructure. When I learned them, they called them technical terms. It's the code, right? So Talmud is like written in code.
I don't
sorry,
see that either.
It's the last 2 words on the penultimate paragraph, on the first line. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it says Tani Rabbanan. That tells us information. So first of all, we know that we're getting a quote from the Mishnah. We're thankfully here. Hello. Come on in. Come have a seat. I have a packet for you. Right here. Nobody bites.
Are you Elizabeth?
I am.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Your timing is impeccable. Okay, here we go. We're right here in the first. So we're lucky. Rabbi Steinsaltz here has added quotation marks for us. Otherwise, we would know. We would have studied the Mishnah, and we'd know that this was a quote. And then it says Tanu Rabbanan. Tanu is a code. It's a code word. And what it's teaching us is that the thing that's about to come is a statement from the 2nd century. It is a baraita. It is from the Tanaitic era, the Tanaim. The root of this verb is shanu. A lot of shins and tavs swap from Hebrew to Aramaic. And shanu is like to teach, like Mishnah, right? It's a sort of repetition teaching. So the Tanaim were the memorizers. They were the people who had always memorized all the texts, and they were like the human recording devices. So here, when it says Tani Rabbanan, it's telling us specifically this was taught in a Baraita in the 2nd century, and which means it's going to be the earliest layer of text outside of a biblical text. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. We started on the second to last paragraph. You haven't missed anything. So I point this out to you because part of one of my goals of this is that you learn how Talmud works, right? You can start to see the matrix, if you will. So here we know we have a quote from the Mishnah, and then we have an early Tanaitic text that's going to, have an issue with it. Now, this text, this first paragraph we're looking at, is in Hebrew, but it very quickly turns to Aramaic, which means that it's coming at a later time period, of the Amoraim who were in Babylonia. So the Mishnah and the Tanaim were in Israel, and then a couple centuries later. So you can already see this is a multi-layer, multi-time period conversation happening. Okay. With that introduction said and done, can I get a volunteer to start with the Mishnah taught?
Wait,
Yes.
Tanu, is that from, they said, or?
Right, so it comes from the word, from the root shanu, or like shane, which means to teach or to repeat.
Okay.
So sometimes shins and tavs swap. In Hebrew, they're shins, and in Aramaic, they're tavs. Right, so it's the same root as shana, like year, and the same root as mishnah. It's this like sort of cyclical, returning, repeating language. So this verb is almost always just used in this context, basically. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It has different versions where it says ditanya, and it means the same thing, which is it was taught in a Braita. Here, what it's also telling us is that when it says Rabbanan, our sages taught, it usually means it's the majority opinion. It's kind of like that it was some sort of collective, not just an individual. Cool? Mm-hmm. Awesome.
All right.
All right, please.
The Mishnah taught, and likewise, if a city is afflicted by pestilence or collapsing buildings, that city fasts and sounds the alarm, and all of its surrounding areas fast, but they do not sound the alarm.
All right, I'm going to pause you there for a second. I know halfway through a paragraph already. The context of this is sort of like, at what point does a city take on the spiritual request of fasting and praying and things like that, which is not what we're going to talk about today. What we are going to talk about is this concept of collapsing buildings. Now, it's going to get kind of technical. We'll work our way through it just fine, but I also want you to think about this as a metaphor, right? This is not just, it is very technical and very physical, but also I want you to, as we interpret this as a metaphor. Okay, keep going. So here, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
Sure.
Rabbi Akiva is going to say something. He's from the Mishnah. And then when it says the sages taught, that's going to be our Braita. All right, go for it.
Rabbi Akiva says, they sound the alarm, but they do not fast. The sages taught, these collapsing buildings to which the sages referred are those of sturdy and not dilapidated walls. They have walls that are not ready to fall, and not those that are ready to fall.
I love it. Amazing. That not is doing a lot of work right there. Okay, so what is the Gemara? The Gemara is going to ask a bunch of questions about, what are we even talking about here? But the sages have taught, right, here's the context, which is we're talking about walls here that are not about to fall apart. These are walls that for some reason are sturdy, right, and are not necessarily going to fall, or they're going to fall for another reason other than damage. So we've got a bunch of different sort of contexts here. Things that are damaged, things that are not damaged, things that are ready to fall, things that are not ready to fall. A little matrix going on here, okay? All right, keep going. Why don't you keep reading for us?
The Gemara expresses puzzlement with regard to the wording of the Braita. What are sound walls? What are walls that are not ready to fall? What are dilapidated walls? What are those that are ready to fall?
Amazing. Let's pause here, right? The Gemara is saying, okay, we got all these new categories here. What do they mean? So someone want to take a crack? What do we think? What are the differences? Don't read ahead. That's spoiling. Anyone want to take a crack? What the differences are between these? Go for it.
I'm guessing sound walls are they look as good as any wall could look. Not ready to fall means they're worn down a bit, but they're still in, you wouldn't think it's going to collapse. Dilapidated means that they're clearly aging and have problems, but not necessarily you'd still walk next to it, and ready to fall you probably don't want to stand next to it.
Great. I love that you use that example because that is going to be a thing the Gemara brings up exactly, which is, do you walk next to it? So I'm so glad you brought that up. Are there other reasons that one might be concerned a wall will fall that looks solid and sturdy? What other scenarios might there be?
Is it protected?
Say more.
Will it protect you from the outside? Not just will it hurt someone if it falls, but is it protecting you from whatever's outside the wall?
Which is to say that the wall has a purpose. Is it going to fulfill that designated purpose, right? Keeping it. All right, cool. I like that.
It could be an earthquake.
Could be an earthquake.
So it could just be sound, but not.
Right. It could be an act of God. You could knock it down.
Is there some external force which is going to cause it to fall. Earthquake, wind, etc.
Being attacked, which I think is what the example you were giving.
Didn't Joshua bring down the walls?
Yeah,
of
someone's got
Jericho?
a shofar.
Yeah, right.
Be wary.
But I mean, then the other question is, if you've got a wall that looks like it is sound, and then it goes down, that may be divine action, which you should have been worried about.
Oh, I love that. Right? It's like a thing I didn't know to be worried about that I should have been worried about had I known the thing was going to happen. Amazing. Between you and Dan, you've basically taught this Gemara here already. I love it. All right, so I want you to go look at the second paragraph, the paragraph we're learning, and it asks these questions. Gemara is asking all these questions. What does it mean? What does it not mean? What is this word? And I'd love just to say that the word sound walls, the word is briot. They're healthy. I just love that language. It's just such a great turn of phrase. But the Gemara is going to ask this question: what's the story with all these things? And then if you look at the second line, last two words, we got a nice comma there, which is very helpful. Sometimes there's no comma. It says lo tzricha, which you translate as no, or it's not necessary. The Gemara does not mean that. It means no, it is necessary. That comma does a lot of work. So do we need all these categories? Is the question the Gemara is asking? Kim, will you keep reading?
The elements in each pair of walls are apparently the same, and the Braita is repetitive. The Gemara answers, no, it is necessary to specify that in the case of walls that fell due to their height, for example, they are sound but also ready to fall due to their excessive height.
Right, so Rabbi Steinsaltz here, right? The bold and the not bold. The bold is the translation. The not bold is Rabbi Steinsaltz. So we have in the case, right? It is necessary. We do need these categories because we have this edge case where you've got a really tall wall, and Rabbi Steinsaltz is explaining it's like a sound wall, but it's really tall, and therefore it could fall, right? It has danger of falling. Alternatively,
the Braita is referring to a case where the walls were positioned on a riverbank, as they are likely to fall, despite the fact that they are not dilapidated, as the riverbank itself is unstable.
amazing, right? So
It's like
now there's
erosion of the ground.
right. There's a context in which the wall. It's not actually about the wall. It's about where the wall is placed, right? Walls in California are more likely to deal with earthquakes. As a people who have family in Southern California, it's a thing I think about, right?
So why are they talking about this?
Go on. Say more.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, like, it just seems like a lot of discussion on something that probably happens very infrequently. So I guess I'm just wondering why.
Well,
There were a lot of walled cities, so maybe it was important, but is it about like damages, like the wall falls and hurts someone, or is it about, I guess I'm just wondering what it's about.
Isn't it about if the wall collapses because of the wall versus is it because of the pestilence? Isn't that what they're asking here?
The pestilence is from a previous. The
Like,
pestilence
they're
is
trying to understand why the wall collapsed.
right. So we'll get a story in a second that will illuminate a little bit. It's not a halakhic answer to this question, which there probably would be. Like if somebody gets hurt, who's liable for it? If it's sturdy but it falls, or right, all sorts of things. I think for us, in the broad context here, which is like there are things you plan for, things you can't plan for, and also not everything is what it appears. Right.
Also,
Wait a second.
True.
Dan, go
I
for
think-
it. Well, I'm going to come back to you after, Michael.
And also, like the previous paragraph is saying, like you're fasting if there's like an epidemic of walls falling, and now this one is saying when sturdy walls are falling, that means someone did something wrong. So like you're building walls too high, you're building them where you shouldn't build them, and that's why walls falling. So it's kind of like things that people might want to take responsibility for.
Later on, it'll become relevant why I'm saying what I'm about to say, which is one of the questions I'm sitting with around this text is where is the human power to make change versus not, which is embedded in what you said here, right?
I think
yeah.
I think one of the things that they're exploring in terms of these various categories of what's in the fall is it something which is the basis only for a fast, or for a fast, but also for announcing the danger?
Announcing what?
The danger. Right. That's where Rabbi Akiva in the Mishnah's context, right? Which is how well do we let people know that there's a concern, right? If you live near the riverbank and there's a big storm and it's flooding, like maybe we need to be sure that everybody over there is safe, even though the walls seem potentially they could be weakened. Let's keep going. It's the right question to ask, which is why are they talking about it, right? So I'm so glad you asked it. All right. We're now on the next page where it says 119 on the bottom. We're still on the same part of Talmud page, which is 20b. Can I get a volunteer to read? The Gemara relates. Okay. The Gemara,
I'll try that.
go for it.
The Gemara relates, this is like that dilapidated wall that was in the Hadaah under which Rav and Shmuel would not pass, although it stood in place 13 years. One day, Rav Adda bar Ahava happened to come there and walk with them. As they passed the wall, Shmuel said to Rav, "Come, master, let us circumvent this wall so that we do not stand beneath it." Rav said to him, "It is not necessary to do so today, as Rav Adda bar Ahava is with us, whose merit is great, and therefore I am not afraid of its collapse."
Amazing. All right. So what's happening in this story? Someone translate from English to English here.
There's like a place where they avoid because they're nervous, and then they're with a person of great merit. Who somehow that makes it feel like you could be brave, do a hard thing, and not worry.
Right. Some divine protection.
So the wall couldn't possibly collapse in a meritorious fashion.
God wouldn't cause the wall
Yeah,
to fall
seems to
on
be today.
this meritorious man, and therefore we're sort of piggybacking on his
Right.
protection.
Right. I when I lived in Pittsburgh, on the way to shul, I would pass this property, and it had a wall that was holding in because the house and the property was sort of up and above. There was this wall. Maybe it was like 5, 6, 7, 8 feet, and it it wasn't straight up and down. It was like at an angle. It wasn't going to fall down, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have described it as dilapidated, but like we can imagine a scenario where there's a wall. It's maybe tilted. Some of the rocks are not quite where they should be, and that's the case. I love the fact that Rav and Shmuel, like they know better. Even though it's been around 13 years, you know what? You don't walk next to a wall that could fall down. And then we have Rav Adda bar Ahava, right? And as I was sharing with you, Reb Mimi Fagosen, one of my teachers, loves to jarash his name. And just the fact that his name has got love in it, just like it's like sort of my spidey senses, right? That's when my spidey senses are off thinking, oh, okay, what's the story with this guy? Right, so we have some sort of theological statement here of Shmuel, or Rav here, who says, this person is so meritorious, we don't know exactly why yet, that there's no chance that this wall that could fall, falls. So we got an interesting theological statement here, not one I'm suggesting you necessarily have to believe by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a statement of belief.
And also, to be clear, he does not think that he is that meritorious, or that Shmuel also merits the wall not falling on them.
Yeah.
So
Right, that he's at some madriga, some level higher, potentially, or more meritorious than him. I love it. Okay, so that's like little vignette number 1, but it's going to be relevant for us. Can I get another volunteer to read? The Gemara relates another incident. The next one.
The Gemara relates another incident. Pardon me. Rav Huna had a certain quantity of wine in a certain dilapidated house, and he wanted to move it. But he was afraid that the building would collapse upon his entry. He brought Rav Adda bar Ahava to the ramshackle, and Steindal says, meaning to the ramshackle house. And he dragged out a discussion with him concerning matters of halakha until they had removed all of the wine. As soon as they exited, the building collapsed. Rav Adda bar Ahava realized what had happened and became angry.
Amazing. All right, so what happens? Rav Huna has got like a basement wine collection here, a cellar, and it's in a house that, like, you know what? This probably should be foreclosed, right? There's got plywood over the windows. It's not a place wine should be. So he invites Rav Adda bar Ahava there, right? And talks Torah with him because of his merit, of some sort of special quality about him. I just love like the imagery of just like, oh, say more about that. Yeah, what do you mean, right? until.
And by the way, hand me the.
Yeah, but
Yeah. By the way,
Ah,
yeah. Right, hand me the wine.
Hand me the wine.
Right, and the moment they exited, the building collapsed. Right, seeming to suggest that Rav's theology here, that Rav Adda bar Ahava is the
lucky
key
charm.
factor, a lucky charm. All
I
right,
think that
perfect.
everyone just knows that Ahava bar Ahava holds up buildings.
Yeah,
This is the-
what a
like,
reputation to have.
It's like, just get him to hold up walls.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He
known.
didn't even know at the time what was happening. In either case,
Because
really.
It wasn't even in the other story.
No,
It's just-
right.
This is known.
We know this right, exactly right, which is these are not the same characters except for Rav Adda bar Ahava, which means it's something that's known about him, right? A reputation about him, right? Of some sort of protection. Why do you think he got angry at the end when he realized what was happening?
Well, I think he's feeling like his position is being abused in a way. I mean, it's just, if he's that sort of character that's going to keep the wall from collapsing, he's, just being used by this other person, his friend, whatever he is, to get the wine moved.
Yeah.
So it's not really, it seems I think he's feeling disrespected.
Yeah. I thought you needed help. I was going to take you to the airport, but actually, you just need me to do this thing for you.
Well, his merit was being used, and he was put in danger himself
Yeah.
for commercial rather than non-commercial benefit
Right.
to the rabbi.
I actually wonder if it's more just about the honesty. Like in the first story, they tell him, they're like, oh, like we can walk here because you're with us. But in the second story, he's not honest about it.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read the first one as that he was aware of it, but
I assumed he was there. when they made
yeah.
the comment.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying you were wrong. I was just like, I never read it that way. That's a really nice lens, right? How much transparency
Yeah,
about
maybe if he
the
just said I need help for this thing, he would
Yeah.
have been like, okay, I can make a decision.
Yeah.
But also what a total waste of Torah. Like he just talked to him about Torah.
Mm.
Is it a
Just to move
waste?
the wine.
Is it a waste? Is
I
there ever such a
mean,
thing as a waste of Torah?
I'm just saying that's how it might have seemed if you were the person whose merits were from your learning or your good deeds or whatever, and then someone's like chit-chatting until the wine is moved.
I can tell when
Torah-ly wrong.
right. I can tell when my wife is really interested in what I have to say, and she's humoring me. Be like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Go on. Yeah, I can tell the difference. We all can tell when someone really is listening to us versus not. Here, right? Again, we have this scenario where Rav Adda bar Ahava is being, I don't know, abused is necessarily the right word. Certainly put into danger, but not being respected at full. Right? Somehow his merit, right? He might be the kind of guy he would be okay with it, but actually he's angry at the end.
The other thing is, others believe he has this magical charm ability. Doesn't say whether he believes it, and like he might think there are limits to it, or doesn't believe in it at all. So, if everyone says, "Hey, come with me in this deadly situation, we'll survive,"
You're right.
But
He
it's
might
interesting
not
that
be
I read
comfortable
it
with that.
completely the opposite. I read it as kind of this immodesty on this guy's part. That, that I'm a mocker here and you're using my particular powers to schlep your wine, but, I've got more important things to do than that.
Right, which is to say that he's such a big deal.
Yeah.
The question might be if someone with that ego would be as meritorious as he actually is. Okay, fine. But perhaps he's just like, I need to use my time really
I do.
intentionally, right? And this isn't necessarily that. So I think I could read that. I could hear
Well,
that.
at least as meritorious as people think he is.
Sure.
Right?
Right, where we don't know how true it is necessarily.
I don't think we should underestimate kosher wine in that time period. Like the making of it and the procuring of it and the storing of it wouldn't
Nice.
have been easy. So it wouldn't have been as simple as like, we got some bottles of wine around here. Like it would have been important to save it, keep it, move it. Again,
Well, there would not have been non-Jews around to be involved with it, so it's more easy to keep it.
I
Sure,
don't
it
know
was
that
still
that's true necessarily. Babylonia was very cosmopolitan. lots of people mixing, but
My point is like it's a process. It's a
resource.
yeah.
But so to the degree
Certainly.
that that's true, then one part of the problem here is why is this guy putting this rare special wine in this dilapidated building?
Or why isn't he explicit about the need to move this very
Yeah,
I
precious
need
help.
resource?
Can you help me
and-
move the
He
wine?
was dishonest.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bookmark the wine thing because it's like there's like a reference of a reference here that I want to make later on. So let's bookmark it. Dan, I want you to read the next paragraph because it's going to tell us what Rav Adda bar Ahava believes.
The Gemara explains Rav Adda bar Ahava holds in accordance with this statement. As Rav Yannai said, a person should never stand in a place of danger and say, "A miracle will be performed for me, and I will escape unharmed," lest a miracle is not performed for him. If you say that a miracle will be performed for him, they will redirect it from his merits.
Right, pause it. We'll deduct it from his merits.
Deduct it, yeah.
Right? So Rav Adda bar Ahava has the same theological view as Rabbi Yannai, right? With just sort of like transitive property here, which is a person should never stand in a place of danger and say, "A miracle will be performed for me." So let's do that first part. Remember, I think when we met last, we talked about that classic story, right? Where like God's going to protect me. It's a big flood, and the guy's on the roof. People familiar with that story?
Yeah.
Yeah? God will protect me. I sent you all the boats. Why didn't you get on one? That story right here.
Right.
Right? So same kind of thing here, right? Which is like, don't put yourself in dangerous situations and hope to God that's like a miracle is going to happen. Miracles should not work that way. It's interesting. In a different place in the Mishnah, in Masechet Brachot, there's a whole discussion about whether or not you can pray for things to change things that are happening. The example is if you hear that there's a fire, you shouldn't then say, "I hope it's not my house." It's like the fire's already happening. That prayer is not doing anything, right? The same kind of thing here, which is like, what is, putting yourself in a situation where you might need a miracle is a sort of a problematic challenge here. And then we have the second piece.
But it's not like the other. In other words, that you're praying for some future, not yet determined phenomenon.
Here.
No, in terms of putting yourself in danger and praying that the danger will not consummate, as opposed to seeing the smoke coming from your village and saying, "Well, there's something burning. I hope it's not my bad."
Right. Here's the scenario. It's like I see the house and it's got the plywood and it's broken and it's like it's like I don't want to go in there. I'm gonna pray that a miracle I don't get tetanus. Right? Like, don't go in the house.
Yeah,
right?
But it's not the same as the other.
For sure. The reason why I mention it is to say that fair enough.
The category, right, yeah, that's the dilapidated, right? Because we had different categories.
Yeah.
I understand that to be, the word dilapidated in English, I understand it in Hebrew to be like, it wasn't always like this. Like, it wasn't built badly. It wasn't built on not solid ground. Like, it could have been built well and it has deteriorated, right?
Yes. So I think that's the whole like discussion earlier on, right? Of like what is
different categories.
right, the different category, which
Right,
is
so
to
this
say
category is one that like it was fine and now
Is
for whatever reason it hasn't been
measurably
cared
not
for.
fine. Exactly.
There's been a problem, but like it's not like it wasn't built well to begin with.
right. This isn't a scenario where we have a sturdy wall that's leaning,
Right.
where it should be fine,
Right.
or it's tall or whatever. Right. This is something that's like very clearly
Right,
not
the time
safe.
or right, but it's I wouldn't say it's anyone's specific fault either.
No.
Right.
Certainly not here, other than maybe Rav Huna, who is inviting his friend to his house
Again,
where it's knowably
I see it
dangerous.
as like the house has become like whatever that point is. Like
Sure,
I don't know. Like
sure.
when do we cross the line from dilapidated to acceptable, right? And whatever point that crossed, Rav Huna is like, I gotta get my stuff out of here.
For sure.
right?
Right.
And like I don't know, like what's that line?
Yeah.
And whatever it is, we've crossed it because they've decided
For
that
sure.
it's raya, right? But like
Absolutely.
So now that he has, like, is it a miracle because he's been living in that house for a while, right? Like he keeps living there every day, but like at some point the line was crossed.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get to that different category.
This feels like earthquake to me. Like the way it's talking about.
Really?
It's
Because
like
I don't think it's an event. I think it's like it's just been.
You're like
happening.
post-earthquake is what
post
you're saying.
earthquake, because like you have the earthquake, some things collapsed, and then you have you have buildings, which are like there's cracks on the wall. There's something wrong with it, but it's still standing, and that's like very common.
I'll give you an example
Yeah.
of that. In 1994, there was the big earthquake in Los Angeles. My family had just moved like 6 months earlier, and I remember driving by the house that we lived in Reseda, and the house seemed fine, but there were a whole lot of bricks from that fireplace that were on the lawn that were not supposed to be on the lawn, right? So the question is that fireplace now, which is a crazy thing to have in Southern California.
chimney fell over.
The chimney, sorry, thank you. The chimney fell over, or not entirely, but in part. So the question is that chimney safe? Is it dilapidated or not? In what category it's in? I love that. I love it, right? And I don't think it's clear, certainly from this story, other than, and perhaps in the Rav and Shmuel story, where it was not safe, but it hadn't fallen, even for a long time.
Right.
So here, then we have the second piece. The piece I have. This is the part that I have the most trouble with, personally speaking. And if you say that a miracle will be performed for them, they will deduct it from their merits, which is to say, the situation that Rav Adda bar Ahava would put in, which is, we're going to put you in this dangerous situation, and it's going to count against you. In the accounting of your merits, this is you're cashing in some of your merits. This is not a theology that jives for me personally, but it's a really interesting set of questions about what does it mean for God? What does it mean our actions mean? Right? What is God really doing as the book of life is open every year, right? This is the accounting, perhaps. And then we get this story, or the reference to our Torah portion here this week, right? Rav Hanan says, sorry, I'm going to take over for you, Dan. What is the verse that alludes to this idea, right? The question is, if you're in the third paragraph in the Hebrew, it's the fifth line. Maikra, what is the verse? How do we know this is the case? Dichtiv, as it is written, I have become small from all the miracles and all the truth that you have showed your servant. And I'm not going to... Mercy, sorry. Small from all the mercies and all the truth that you have showed your servant. This comes in the story where Jacob has split, the rest of this verse is, God. Jacob is saying to God, he's about to encounter Esav. He's split his stuff into two, and he's saying to God, protect me. You promised I wasn't going to die, and that I was going to have all of this future, and now I'm going to go to the guy who's going to kill me. Like, don't forget to keep your promise. And here, I think I have my own take on this that's different than theirs, but the play here is katonti. The verb is you have made me small, right? You've deducted, you've reduced my merit. That's the move that the rabbis are making. I don't think that's the best move here, but that's the move they're making, which is that Jacob is saying, you've done all these good things for me, and now I'm putting you in a dangerous situation. That's what's happening here. The problem with this story, and I'm going to tell you my problem with it. The problem I have with it is that in the verse, God's made a promise, God keeps God's promises. Second, Esav wasn't angry with Jacob anymore. A miracle wasn't necessarily needed. And if so, you might believe that God is then changing Esav's mind. There's no evidence of that. So now Jacob is in the situation where that is presumably dangerous, but isn't actually, and praying for a thing that isn't a miracle. That's why I have a problem with it. Which begs, I think, a deep question, which is what's really happening here? Yeah.
I mean, that's how you interpret like the actual Torah text, but like aren't there all commentaries that sort of like say, Esau really was
Could be
problematic? So like, are these rabbis coming from that perspective as well? Like, the whole like he was needing to bite Yaakov's ear and kissed him instead, and like all these texts that sort of try their hardest to make Esau like really worse than he is.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Certainly rabbis would know some midrash, and Rav Hanan certainly could have felt this way. Although, again, Hanan is a great word to drash, which means grace, from the chen, right? It's like, giving someone grace. So again, there's a funny little drash to be had there. So certainly the rabbis are not a fan of Esav, and would certainly have a read where Esav is still the bad guy, is still a dangerous foe, where Jacob is, in the lion's den here. Pardon the pun, right?
You could also say that that whether or not the perceived danger is real, you lose chets when you pray for the miracle.
Which is to say, using our story here, Jacob used up some of his merit by praying to God, even though he's putting himself in this dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Even though who's
Or,
putting him in a
I
dangerous
mean,
situation?
well, maybe
He's putting himself.
even if he wasn't putting himself in a dangerous situation, because I think what they're saying is praying for miracles, whether you are guilty of enhancing your own risk or not. They're saying you're in danger, may not be your own fault. Pray to God. You lose some.
It's going to be deducted from your account.
It's almost like against this idea of unconditional love.
Yeah.
Like he only merited a certain amount, and if he asked for too much or did one thing,
Don't
But-
overdraft.
yeah, there's only so
But
much
the-
you can
but
expect.
the
or-
whole context with Rabbi Ahava is that everybody's got his or I guess his own account of credits.
Yeah.
And hang out with the person whose credits are so high that you'll be sheltered by the favor that this person.
Yeah.
See, maybe I'm taking it
Yeah.
a little in a different direction, but I think what comes to mind for me is you don't need a miracle, you just have to act. Like why do you need a miracle? Just use your agency and do the right thing anyway.
I personally tend to lean more that way as well. I mean, there's a lot of reads here. I'm not suggesting any one of them is right or wrong here. In the story, in the verse, Jacob has done everything humanly in his power to ameliorate the situation with his brother. He's protected his family. He's sent on gifts ahead, trying to do it. So he takes a lot of agency, right? And you have Rav and Shmuel. Don't walk under the dilapidated wall, right? There's agency involved here. So there's a real tension, I think, emerging in the story, which I don't think is simply resolved, between where's the power of human agency, where we can make choices about things that are dangerous. And there are lots of dangerous things in our life. Like the whole context of this is buildings are collapsing for one reason or another, pestilence. There's danger out in the world. There's a world where we are in the midst of or experiencing tragedy. That's why I started with that language, right? Where we have agency, where we don't have agency, where our relationship with God fits in. Now, there's a question about like whether or not Rav Adda bar Ahava did in fact merit all this. Let's say it was true, right? He certainly has the reputation. What a kind of person that must be, right? To merit this thing. If we're saying that this is the calculus is true, right? Which again, I'm not personally claiming here.
I guess I'm struggling because Adda bar Ahava didn't demand a miracle be performed for him.
Rav Huna did on his behalf, but you're right.
But he
He
didn't.
himself didn't.
That's like a huge difference. Like he didn't go into a place that he thought was dangerous and demand a miracle be performed.
He did go into a place that
He did
that
go
he
into
knew
the
was-
dangerous
that he knew was
place.
dangerous.
He knew it was dilapidated.
Right, so this goes to that same question you were asking before, right? Which is,
Right.
where's that threshold and is it observable?
Right. So like if we assume that he went in there not under a bout of honesty, then he did not. Then actually Rav Huna almost protected him by not forcing him to use his own merits.
Right.
In which case, then Jacob is actually asking. Now, Jacob asking for the protection. Well, we know as omniscient readers.
Yeah.
But it's different than the fire because people can change their mind in a second. Esav could show up to that meeting and change his mind.
Sure.
Right. So like he could still be praying for positive vibes from his brother up until the moment of meeting.
Right.
So
'Cause you don't
that to
know.
me is right. That to me is not a miracle. That's not a nace.
Right.
That's a. So I'm
So-
struggling. I'm struggling to make the connection between these two
Yeah.
stories that the rabbis are making because I just see them as not having agency in the same way.
Yeah.
It feels to me when I read the story like God is saying like, don't you dare use my name to get a good reservation. Like, don't on my merits or I'm gonna dock your. That's how it reads. Sort of like, you don't deserve to call on me to do for you. I don't know. It just has such
Are you
a.
saying with Jacob or
This is
or-
I'm
Rav Adda
talking
bar
more
Ahava
about
is
this line that and if you say a miracle will be performed, then it will
Sure,
be deducted
okay.
from the
Because
marriage.
the thing with Jacob is like Jacob already did that. He already used God.
That's true. So I think a couple of things are happening, right? We have a story at the very beginning that establishes this motif, this idea that Rav and Shmuel are avoiding a dangerous situation, but Rav Adda bar Ahava's zchut, merit, is protecting them. And that this is measurably, that they're making choices about their safety based on that. So that's the first story. The second story, we have Rav Huna. And I think the pshat of the story, the surface level meaning of the story, is that he is hoodwinked Rav Adda bar Ahava. That it's not obvious that it's dilapidated, and that he knows, but he's using Rav Adda bar Ahava's not knowing to his protection. I think that is the surface shot reading of the text. I think that that's right. And it's only at the end when Rav Adda bar Ahava realizes, again, differently than the first time perhaps, or maybe Rav and Shmuel said this and they didn't end up walking under it, or it's not clear, but at least in the second story.
It didn't end up collapsing in the first story.
In the first story, we actually don't get what happens. We only get that Rav says, I'm not afraid. Right, so we don't know exactly, but fine. The presumption is that they were willing to be at least into danger. Rav Adda bar Ahava at the end of the story is saying, I don't want to be put in these situations. And maybe it is this theology, which is like, if I put myself knowingly in these situations, then I've put an undue burden perhaps on God, or some version thereof.
It's like a waste of his powers, kind of. Like if you're going to have a miracle, have it be something, more miraculous.
Substantial, yeah. The only thing I'll add, and then Dan, I'll go to you, which is, I think that the rabbis are using this verse solely because of the verb, you have made me small. Mm-hmm. I think they're making the move to say, why do your merits get deducted? Because I have this verb that says you have made me small. I think that's the move. I actually don't think that they're pulling from the whole story. I just think when you put those stories next to each other, there's some interesting tension that happens. But I think that the move that they're making is really just the verb. Yeah. And then we're gonna.
So building on what you said earlier about the first story, he knew he was walking under a dangerous wall because they said it. If you sort of read it as like, hey, when he walked under that wall with them, everyone else was like, oh, we can use him this way. And it led him into this second situation where he had become smaller and he became manipulated. And the Yaakov story, I wonder if this you had made me small, like I'd have to see the context around it. Is it clearly talking about what's happening then or his whole previous thing? Because his life was, up to that point, was full of him sort of expecting miracles. Where he keeps getting himself in some pretty bad situations and he's like, I'll get the blessing, the sheep will become mine because of this stick thing. So has he sort of relied too much on everything's gonna work out just fine for me, and now he's approaching Esau and he's like, have I been relying on this and now I am a small person because of...
Have I spent all of this?
Yes, have I spent it up?
Those are good questions. I'm not going to try and answer them. They're great questions.
Can I just say one more sentence?
Please.
Like, what is diminished? What is katonti? Like, not just this, but like, is God's power or the eminence diminished to be used in this particular, you're like, oh, actually, I've got this card I can use and I can take care of this thing. That's, I think, where I got stuck on the...
Right. Yeah. I think one of the emergent things for me in this is that putting ourselves in a position where we're using God is a problematic one, where God is a thing to be used. Not that God couldn't be relied on, but relied on in this way becomes limiting on some level of what God's power really looks like, or what God's presence should be. Again, I haven't totally fleshed it out in my own head yet, but there's a tension here. I think maybe perhaps modern people and ancient people perhaps could be a layer to this, but certainly it's establishing a theology, whether or not you should believe it notwithstanding. I want to keep going and read the next two paragraphs.
I think that I don't think this is what the rabbis meant, I want to be clear, but I think there's a more interesting comparison to Adda bar Ahava and actually all of Yaakov's family that gets separated. That they're the ones who actually don't know. They're actually the ones who are being brought into this, and they've never met Esav. They don't know his capabilities. They don't have the fear that Yaakov has, and they're being diminished. And actually, they are the ones who end up going to Mitzrayim, right? They are the ones who get. And so I think there's a question there of is there a diminishing of his next generation because he's put them now in this dangerous situation? I think I don't think that's what the rabbis meant, but I think that's a more interesting comparison.
I love that.
And doesn't he put the most valued relatives in the back.
No, it's
No?
the
No,
opposite.
it's the
The
opposite.
opposite?
He sends everybody ahead.
And also, this is also, I mean, around this time is also when Dinah gets
Yeah.
impacted, right? Like there is
But
impact.
they're separated into two
He
groups.
separates them into two groups, but then he also sends them ahead. I don't want to get too lost in the parsha here, because but they're good questions, and I don't know how to I don't know how to unravel them. That's a good. I wish we had 2 more hours. We
But
could
I mean,
figure it out together.
Relative to the two. Okay,
Yeah, you'll have to look it up.
I'll check on Shabbat.
Okay, so the next 2 paragraphs are very different. They take a slightly different angle on this. They tell us a little bit more about Rav Adda bar Ahava. What I wanted to tell you also is this thing we're about to read shows up as a whole set of patterns in Masechet Megillah. It's one of my favorite sections. It's fun to see that same thing in a new place. And it's going to tell you more about who Rav Adda bar Ahava was. But I wanted you to see that this thing he's about to say is a pattern that emerges in other places. So it says the following. After recounting the stories that reflect Rav Adda bar Ahava's great merit, the Gemara asks, "My Ahava, what were these things that Rav Adda bar Ahava was doing? Like, what made him so special?" The Gemara reports that they were as it is stated. The students of Rabbi Zera asked him, and some say it was the students of Rav Adda bar Ahava asked him, "To what do you attribute your longevity?" Right? Yes.
He's old.
At least at
Apparently
some
that's
point.
not-
At some point. This question, again, is the thing that emerges in Masechet Megillah. There's 4 or 5 of these vignettes of different rabbis answering this question. It's a fantastic section. I taught it at Segula's Shavuot learning a couple of years ago. It's a great text. So he says to them, "In all my days, I did not become angry with my household, and I never walked before someone greater than myself." And Rabbi Steinsaltz tells us, rather, I always gave the other person the honor of walking before me. Right? So there's a real sense of self-control, discipline, and humility shows up here. Okay, these are usually a couple of things. So that's the first thing. Second thing, Rav Adda bar Ahava continued, "And I did not think about matters of Torah in filthy alleyways." We just heard that wasn't totally true. "And I did not walk 4 cubits without engaging in Torah and without donning tefillin. And I would not fall asleep in the study hall, neither a deep sleep or a brief nap. And I did not rejoice in the mishap of my colleague, and I would not call my colleague by his nickname." There's a whole thing about calling people by their names or by nicknames. Is it potentially embarrassing or insulting? And some say, he said, "I would not call my colleague by his derogatory family name." Which is to say, who is Rav Adda bar Ahava? Who is he? What kind of person is he?
Righteous, formal, seems very formal.
Yeah.
Hyper considerate.
Yeah, really thoughtful
Yeah.
about his interactions with other people. Yeah, respectful. I mean, this is the kind of person you want to have around. Like, it makes sense that they would want him around, perhaps even if they're not always treating him as fully as we wish he was. There's in these series in Masechet Megillah where these show up, I notice that there is a pattern where it's relationships to other people, relationships to place, and relationships to God all emerge in those stories, and we see that here as well, right? I didn't get angry with other people. I treated people with respect. I didn't call people with nicknames. Those are relationships with people. Relationships with God is I treated Torah respectfully. I didn't go in. I was always present with me, and it was never in filthy alleyways, right?
I wore my tefillin.
The tefillin part bothers me a bit.
Oh, say.
Yeah.
Because he's 4 cubits means she's wearing them all the time.
They
That
used
was
to wear them all
that was
the time.
very
So
common.
it was
Very
okay.
common.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people still do it, but very few. I think every once in a while, if you're in Jerusalem, you see somebody wandering around with tefillin on. But yeah, it's very common.
It got to be too much.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, your
I mean-
fingers are going to turn purple.
I mean, I forget who it was, but someone who was ill, and in order to, I guess, go to the bathroom, he had to take the tefillin off,
Yes.
go there, put them back on, get sick again, and
Also, even if you're not ill.
Yeah.
Just taking them on and off every day to go to the
I
bathroom.
forget what the story was.
Yeah, I've
but
heard that
but
one.
But pardon me?
I've heard that as well, yeah.
And then it was a sign of how distressedly ill the sage was, that I mean, the need to take off and put on, take off and put on the tefillin exacerbated the physical problem.
Yeah. Yes, one should be careful with the tefillin. The last thing I'll say is then again, physical space was the third piece, is study hall, right? Those three things show up. And I think for us, right, part of this study is not just for the intellectual exercise, but for us to like walk through the world as different people, I think. That's part of what we're doing with Torah study. So I think we can learn from Rav Adda bar Ahava's example in a variety of different ways here about how to walk through the world, how to treat other people, and even the whole questions of being manipulated, right? What does that look like? You know, too much of any one quality is no good, right? If you're too giving and you give too much, you can't sustain yourself. If you're too stingy, then you haven't supported the people around you. There's like a line. So there's a whole discussion about lifnim mishurat adin, going beyond the letter of the law. In Hebrew, it's slightly different phrase, but in English, that's what we call it. And it's like, if you never do it, then nobody will help you out. But if you always do it, you can't sustain it. So there's like a balance here. And part, I think, what we're experiencing in this story is a tension between those balances. How do we manage that?
So I have just a question,
Yeah.
because we've been talking about this meritorious person who, you know, could make miracles happen and kind of using them for the miracle. But the other idea of being close to someone who is righteous, because the glow of that can rub off on us. So maybe it isn't just like trying to use them, but just trying to learn from them and be close to them.
Yeah. Right, if we had taken the context of the dilapidated house away, and it was just Rav Huna, tell me more Torah, dragging out, give me more Torah while I have to be stuck doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That changes the valence of that story quite tremendously, right? If we take out the context of the dilapidated house, right? Yeah.
Although with I don't know the English translation, but dragged I feel like is a negative word. So is it inherently a negative word in Hebrew too? Or?
I'm not sure. I mean, in this context, it's certainly meant to be. If the word is mishache, so it's like to draw out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. The using doesn't bother me. The lack of honesty bothers me more. But if the lack of honesty was to sort of almost protect him from himself, then I don't know. Like, there's lots of reasons we're dishonest in this. Like, there's lots of types of lies, as there are lots of types of walls. So like, I'm not clear on that. But like, the using of someone isn't the bigger problem to me. Like, we all use each other, and we all utilize different people in this world. I guess the problem is the overuse, I guess, and the other person has to say yes or no, right? Like there's he could say no.
Right, agency.
Yeah, thank you, agency. That's the word.
Yeah. Other thoughts on this story, and the set of
I'm
stories?
just struck by
Yeah.
this criteria of what is meritorious. That these things are not extreme. They're sort of like, you could say like, oh, you fall asleep, take a nap. That's like a very human thing. You could excuse almost anybody for having a late night. They're up with their kid and then they fall asleep, and it's almost like he's just that much better. It's almost it's not like this guy never hit anybody. It's not even that. It's these like 4 cubits. It's not like I never went a half a day. No, I never walked
6 feet.
Yeah, I would like so I'm just struck that it's like the last 2% of good.
It's like attainable.
I would say this is like the it's very hard to get that last little bit.
Yeah.
Lots of people can be good enough, and this is like being very, very good. I don't know, good is the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like just, and I don't know why that strikes me as different than the way we characterize other goodness, other merits, other righteousness.
What's not on here, right, is that tzedakah, or he always davened every morning, or he always ate matzah for all he did, whatever. There's all sorts of things not on this list, right? It's really telling what is on this list and the nature of them. Not that he didn't do all those things too, or who knows, right?
So you talked about this as metaphor at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is the dilapidated house in some sense a metaphor for the character of the people? So that as long as they are engaging with this righteous man, they're going to stand up, and when they stop engaging with him, they're going to fall down.
Yeah, I think that's right. We talked already about having like getting like you want good people around who rub you the right. So that whole saying is like we are made up of the 7 people we spend the most time with, right? I don't know if people have ever heard that before. Yeah. Okay, it's the thing I've heard say. I didn't come up with it. Don't credit me. But like, we are very much made up of where and how and way we spend time. Right? It's like we are how we act. We are how we spend our time. We are the choices we make. And I think to your point, right? If we think of this as metaphor, where a dilapidated house and walls is all of the temptations, the difficulties, the challenges, I think about the funny language of when Cain kills Abel, right? It says like the evil is like at the doorstep or whatever the phrasing it is, right? It's like the threat of making bad choices is actually always there. So what kind of influences do we want? I think about this with the internet. It's like, what stuff do you want to zoomed into your eyeballs and your ears? Like controlling spending time with good people really matters here. I've been studying a lot more Kabbalah lately, so I have like my brain is like spooling with all sorts of funny stuff. But I think fundamentally, yeah, right? We are how we spend our time with. If you spend time with people who aren't great, right? Who don't care about other people, who are selfish. It's like that stuff it's hard to escape because you're around it. It feels normal, right? So I think that's right.
In terms of the other places that you said that the merits of Rabbi Ahava were mentioned, did they include the not walking before somebody who's greater, and did they include not thinking about Torah in filthy alleyways?
I don't understand what you mean. What's the question?
Were there other examples, or were they
No,
the
you
same
mentioned there were other
examples?
examples.
So in the other examples, it's different rabbis answering the question, how did you survive? Like, what's the magic to your longevity?
I see, okay.
It's not necessarily him.
I thought you said there was something about Rabbi Ahava as well.
That particular one might show up in the other place. I just don't remember. Rabbi Zera does for sure. Rabbi Zera and his school, perhaps. It's like he's definitely mentioned. So there's in Masechet Megillah, there's all these examples. I don't remember if Rabbi Adda bar Ahava is there, although to his name seems like quite a lovely guy, right? But I also think it's worth noting, and then we'll spend the last couple of minutes. I wanted to just share one last story with you that's on this page that we skipped, which is it is very clear to me that this 2 paragraphs about the longevity is an editorial choice. These stories, even if the sound walls thing and these stories and Rabbi Adda bar Ahava are all together, this longevity piece, because it lives somewhere else also, means it's edited in here, right? Which is the reasonable associative question is who is this guy? What makes him so meritorious? Now we have our answer. So it's just, again, as we start to peel back the Talmudic layers, there's that. So,
one more question.
Yeah.
Do the rabbis believe that there is a limited amount of zchut in this world?
I have no idea. That's a great question.
Because Rambam obviously comes later, and Rambam is
Yeah.
you never know. You always have to assume you're
You're not enough.
you're an equal.
Yeah.
That obviously comes later. But if you believe that there's a limited amount, that's a very different thing than if you can always continue to add to your own zchut.
My gut tells me the answer is no.
That there's
That
not a limited
there's
amount.
not a limited amount,
You
but
could
that we
always
only
add.
right.
You
With
can
if
add and
tshuva is
subtract.
always possible even at the moment of your
You
death.
can always add, you can always subtract.
I think that's
and
right.
it's unlimited.
I think that's right. Okay, we skipped it because this part was the part I wanted to talk about and had the parsha in it. I want you to go back to the page we started on. We have a minute, and so I'm just going to read it really fast because it's such a good story. And then when you realize that this was the edited choice that precedes the one we just encountered, it's like chef's kiss. It's beautiful, okay? So I'm going to start at the top of the page, 118. The sages further taught, we could spend an hour just on this one, so we're not going to, you're going to go home, hungry for more. The sages further taught in the praise of a reed, like a plant. A person should be soft like a reed, and they should not be stiff like a cedar. An incident occurred in which Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, came from Migdal Gador, from his rabbi's house, and he was riding on a donkey and strolling on the bank of a river. And he was very happy, and his head was swollen with pride because he had studied much Torah. Right, so we can imagine such a person, right? He's like he's like jazzed, right? He's had this thing. He's like, "Oh, I'm awesome. We did this whole thing. We spent the whole day, whatever, right? He happened upon an exceedingly ugly person who said to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi." But Rabbi Elazar did not return his greeting. Instead, Rabbi Elazar said to him, "Worthless, reka, empty person, how ugly is that man?" Not so nice. "Are all the people of your city as ugly as you?" The man said to him, "I do not know, but you should go and say to the craftsman who made me, how ugly is this vessel you made?" Greatest comeback ever, right? You want to complain? Complain to God. When Rabbi Elazar realized that he had sinned and insulted this man merely on account of his appearance, he descended from his donkey and prostrated himself before him. And he said to the man, "I have sinned against you, forgive me." The man said to him, "I will not forgive you until you go to the craftsman who made me and say, how ugly is this vessel you made." Right, way to hold the guy accountable, right? I love it. He walked behind the man, trying to appease him, until they reached Rabbi Elazar's city. And the people of his city came out to him and greet him, and they saying to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi, my master, my master." Right? So they're walking together. They come to the town, and everybody runs out and says, "Oh, Rabbi, you're here." The man said to him, "Who are you calling my rabbi, my rabbi?" They said to him, "To this man who's walking behind you." Right? Again, what's so interesting, right? Where we have the Rabbi Adda bar Ahava has never walked behind someone. Okay, amazing. Just the editing is amazing, right? He said to them, "If this man is a rabbi, may there not be many like him among the Jewish people." Right? The rabbis often write in the Gemara and other places that it says the enemies of the Jewish people. Right? It's like, that's how it's often described. Okay. Amazing. They asked him, "For what reason do you say this?" Right? They don't know the whole story. He said to them, "He did such and such to me." And they said to him, "Even so forgive him, for he's a great Torah scholar." Again, we could spend an hour on this story alone for so many reasons. He said to them, "For your sakes I forgive him, provided that he accepts upon himself not to become accustomed to behave like this." What an amazing amount of kindness this person gave to Rabbi Elazar. Immediately, Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, entered the study hall and taught, "A person should always be soft like a reed, and he should not be stiff like a cedar. As one who is proud like a cedar is likely to sin." He's describing himself. He was stiff. He should have been soft. And therefore, due to his gentle qualities, the reed merited that a quill be taken from it to write the Torah scroll phylacteries mezuzot. So now we have this fun, interesting reason why we use this item for this thing. Again, we could spend a lot of time. But just to take a step back here of the Gemara, choosing to put these stories basically next to each other on the same page. We always, it's so important to remember that Gemara is not a law book. It's a book. It's a many things. But part of what it is pedagogy of how to think like a rabbi, how to think rabbinically, how to do this kind of Jewish thinking. To put all these stories together on the same page is not an accident. It's a reminder to us, right? Rav Adda bar Ahava is not just a good example, right? It's real lessons about what to do, how to walk through the world. We will end there. Great learning together, everybody. It's wonderful.
Thank you.